Hello, I'm Chris Hartwell, and welcome to the Heartbeat. Today we're going to be talking about episode 4 of season 1 of HBO's Westworld. Join me, won't you? So, this week's episode of Westworld made some rather interesting steps, ones that seemed designed to expand and accelerate the individual plot lines, while at the same time slow the overall pace of the series and just its inevitable descent into chaos and revolution. And of course, Jonathan Nolan, being the kind of writer that he is, he couldn't do so without once or twice winking at us, the audience, and very cheekily putting us in our place. He was talking to us when Bernard said to Elsie, "The hosts don't imagine things. You do." And he was Ford and we Teresa in the scene where he essentially told her, "You may think you know what's going on here, you may believe that you have control, but you really have no idea. And here, we are the gods, and you merely our guests." And so the way that this episode redirected my attention to just how much control those behind Westworld really have over it, I thought to be a surprising and perception-altering revelation. One that was previously, at the very least, unclear, but now was iterated with focus and directness. And the transition between those two perceptions really was made with precision and ease as well. So the development of Bernard and Dolores' relationship, for example, really seemed to pump the brakes this week, the former finding so much less connection with the android. So in their scene together, we watched as Bernard transitioned from seeming to identify with Dolores as she said, "You think that grief will make you small and sad, but it doesn't. I feel spaces opening up inside of me, like a building with rooms I've never explored." 2, clearly rejecting the legitimacy of those sentiments by dispassionately retorting, "That's very pretty, Dolores. Did we write that for you?" In that exchange alone, we saw Bernard go from connected and accepting, desiring to open up a door in his own heart, to much more detached, unable to look past that android's synthetic thoughts and emotions. Though it does seem that he couldn't resist leaving that door open just a crack, the look on his face communicating the sympathy that he still felt for that girl when she said, "I think there may be something wrong with this world. Something hiding underneath. Either that, or there's something wrong with me. I may be losing my mind." And Dolores wasn't the only one under that impression this week, Maeve feeling spaces inside of her opening up as well. But what made her storyline so unique was, even as she was opening up different rooms within her mind, as well as different compartments under her literal floor, even that seemed under the control of those running Westworld. So while in weeks past, those behind the curtain were presented as almost these comedic buffoons for getting the bullet in Maeve's abdomen and allowing her to awaken during that procedure and run naked through their labs, they now seemed almost completely in control of their creation, actually designing that Maeve would recall those images and illustrate those memories, and actually guiding that child to drop that doll and Hector to explain to her, "This is the Shade, sacred native lore, the men who can walk between worlds, and they were sent from hell to oversee our world." In a lot of ways, it felt like the concept of the One as presented in the Matrix sequels, where the idea of a deity was just used as another form of control. And I thought that too in the almost mocking way that the Man in Black said to Lawrence, "You have always been a prisoner. What if I told you that I'm here to set you free?" I just did not buy that he believed what he was saying, but rather was just trying to manipulate that host and assert more power over him. Which brings me to the Man in Black's storyline, which for me was the most interesting example of just how the Maker's hands control everything. A couple weeks ago, we'd seen that they were indeed aware of his actions and at least stepping out of his way, but this week it was taken to a whole new level. With a flip of the switch, they could control he and the other guests' firearms and even explosives. And just the fact that they referred to them as pyrotechnic effects was this brilliant reminder of just how controlled and fake this entire world was. And I thought the director too did a great job visually communicating the idea and capturing just how much like a stage production this entire world was. Repetitious and predictable, with the near identical framing of the Man in Black once again taking out a group of men, the camera holding close on Lawrence's blindfolded face. And because of all of this, even as the Man in Black confidently exposited to Armistice about Arnold and how he broke his rule by dying in the park, but that he believed that the co-creator of Westworld still had one more story to tell, a story with real stakes, real violence, I just couldn't help but think, Men in Black, you really don't have a clue. Just the fact that his storyline was being guided in a direction that not only converged with others like Teddy, but that it now involves Wyatt, a host who Ford seems both aware and very much in control of. It just told me that the Man in Black may well be disappointed by what he finds at the end of the maze. Furthermore, this episode itself did a great job pointing out the fakeness of Westworld by simply reminding us of the existence of the real world. And with that, one of the more tantalizing comments of the episode came from a random guest who began to say about the Man in Black, "Your foundation saved my sister's life." In a similar way, we were given a few more clues as to who Logan and William were in the outside world, and perhaps why they chose to come on the strip to begin with, when Logan said, "With our family, everything is business." Of course, the episode illustrating just how much control the makers of Westworld have over their world and the storylines within it doesn't mean that we see those stories from the same God's eye perspective, or have anything close to all the answers. For example, who exactly is Logan's family, and why are they so intent on giving William a purpose? Are they just concerned about their daughter and wanting her fiancé to man up? And even as Ford seemed unconcerned about them, we still don't really know who the board is or the identity of their representative. And even though I know Teresa won't live up to her promise and return the smashed androids post-mortem after her team has finished their investigation, I still don't know why they're investigating and what they really want. And even as I felt that much of what Maeve was experiencing was controlled by those behind the scenes, it was interesting to note the musical selection as well as the slow motion used when Hector's gang arrived in town, and just how it stood in stark contrast to how the subsequent scene was scored and shot. One was meaningless repetition, and the other intriguing new territory. And even while Dolores' own search for the maze now seems completely authored by Bernard, there were certain visual clues, as well as emotional responses from her, that did seem to illustrate some sort of growth beyond what was designed. This week, for example, she didn't wake up in the exact same position that she had every other day. And also the level of anger and fight within her at the Mexican village was very different to what we'd seen previously. Like the stray steers in her herd, Dolores would no longer be brought back for the slaughter. And of course, Ford remains extremely enigmatic, and just the fact that he's not creating a retrospective story does seem to point to the fact that all this is leading towards something new and potentially rather frightening. Those are my thoughts anyways on this week's episode of Westworld. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. Definitely comment below, though, and let me know what you guys have thought of the episodes thus far. There's only a certain amount of time that I can talk about any given episode right here on The Heartbeat, and I'm definitely missing things. So I need your help, and I just love hearing from you and conversing with you. So definitely comment below and let me know what you're enjoying and what you're not. Also, I must give a very special shout out and thank you to all of my patrons over on patreon.com. Guys, thank you so much for giving your very real hard-earned dollars to this show. It really does mean a lot and has allowed me to, well, give back just a little bit. I'm not going to say exactly what, though. If you've been listening and watching, I'm sure you know what's coming. But this week, I have a very special treat for all of you, and I'm very, very excited to share it. Finally, though, even if you guys can't support me on patreon.com, please do subscribe. I'm going to continue to review films and television on this channel, and I would love for you to stay up to date on all of those things. But for now, I'm Chris Hartwell. This is The Heartbeat. Thank you for joining me.